Hello everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Scouting YouTube channel. We are going to be starting what I hope to be a weekly series here of the power rankings of every NFL team after each week. So this is the post week 1 power rankings, and let's go ahead and get right into it. One of the things that I think is incredibly important is to not overreact. So a lot of these teams are not going to move significantly from where I had them ranked in the preseason power rankings. So, there's going to be instances where, say, the Titans, who lost to the Giants, are still ranked higher, or the Packers, who lost to the Vikings, are still ranked higher. So I think that that's important to realize. You can come after me in the comments if you want to, but I think that it's really important to kind of understand this is 1 week. We don't need to overreact. Last year, the Panthers were 3-0, and they finished as one of the worst teams in football. So I think that that's really important, and I don't want to overreact at any point. I'm looking at this at a game-by-game basis, and this is just a fun way to kind of review the week and see where these teams stand right now. So let's go ahead, hop right in. At number 32, we do have the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons lost this game due to a last-second field goal from Will Lutz. They were up pretty much the whole game. The first 3 quarters, they certainly deserved to win it. Cordarrelle Patterson had a really good game, but their defense just kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter. Classic Falcons fashion. I like the coaching staff. I like Arthur Smith. I think they did some good things today, but ultimately, I just think that this team lacks talent. They didn't really do anything to move out of this spot, so that's where I'm going to keep them for now. At number 31, I have the Houston Texans, who are one of the 2 teams that have a tie. They tied with the Indianapolis Colts. They were up 20-3. Much like the Falcons, they had a big collapse. The Colts came all the way back, and they go to overtime. Nobody's able to score, and that's it. They end in a tie. Really unceremonious. I hate ties in the NFL, but it doesn't really change anything for what I think the Texans are. They had some nice plays. Davis Mills played pretty decent. The defense gave up a lot of points in that second half, but ultimately, they played pretty tough against a team I expect to be pretty good. So, credit to them for that. At number 30, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They played the Washington Commanders in a game that I actually thought the Jaguars had a decent chance of winning. Trevor Lawrence had an up and down game. He had some really nice throws. He had some really bad misfires as well. Carson Wentz played well for the Commanders and terrible at the same time, as Carson Wentz does. But I was impressed with some of the things that the Jaguars did. I thought Trayvon Walker had a really good game. I think their offense, Christian Kirk, played pretty well. James Robinson, Travis Etienne, when Etienne was able to hold onto the ball, they did a pretty good job as well. So they have some good things to build on. Unfortunately, you do lose to a team I don't think is particularly fantastic. So we're going to keep you down towards the bottom of the power rankings. At number 29, I have the New York Jets. The Jets are a team with Joe Flacco at the helm is probably the worst team in football. I am hoping that Zach Wilson, once he comes back, has a little bit of a higher upside, and this team has the pieces, in theory, that they could be at least more competitive than some of these teams I have ranked below them. I am excited once Wilson gets back. I don't want to watch Jets football until then. Joe Flacco did not have a good game against his former team in the Ravens. And, they kind of held up against the Ravens for a little bit, and then the floodgates opened, and they really just couldn't compete with a really good team. So, unfortunately, they are going to stick towards the bottom of the power rankings here, but at least they have some of that hope for the future with Zach Wilson. Next up at 28, we have the Seattle Seahawks. This is the lowest team to have a win. Now, I think that this was just such an emotional game for Seattle, for Russell Wilson, really for so many different people, and it certainly had an impact. It was always going to be a weird game. It was always primed for an upset, and I'm not surprised that the Seahawks won this game, to be honest. Geno Smith actually played really, really well, which credit to him. I did not ever see that happening. He probably outplayed Russell Wilson, at least in the first half or first 3 quarters. Nathaniel Hackett had horrible game management towards the end of the game, but don't take anything away from the Seahawks. They deserve this win, and good for them. They're already halfway to my projected win total for them this season, so good for them. I'm happy, and maybe if they continue to look like that, they'll move up a couple more spots here. At number 27, we have the New York Giants. This team played really, really hard for Brian Daboll, and I talked at length about how much I like Brian Daboll, and I think that this game just proves that to be true. Nobody was playing this hard for Joe Judge for the Giants last year, and Well, let's talk about Saquon. Saquon had a great game. Is he back and looking like himself? If he is, that's going to be a huge boost to this Giants team, and certainly someone they can rely on. If you can take some pressure off Daniel Jones, who's got, in theory, some good wide receivers if they ever play or, are able to reach their potential. If you can take some pressure off of that, and, Barkley now has a decent offensive line, that's really exciting. And I think that they could potentially move up a couple of spots and continue to play well under Brian Daboll. That's really exciting for Giants fans. At number 26, I have the Carolina Panthers. They lose their first game to the Cleveland Browns. The Baker revenge tour does not work out. I do think that they showed some decent things here and there. They really couldn't get a lot going until later on in the game. They really struggled, and the Browns didn't look particularly fantastic, so, I'm not seeing this team being awesome. And the play calling, whether it was Ben McAdoo or the head coaching with Matt Rule, I just think they are so horribly coached, and that really limits the belief that I have in this team. And it's unfortunate because they've got some good pieces. I think Baker's an underrated quarterback. McCaffrey is healthy for now. You've got some good weapons. But right now, not really a great team. They've got a chance to, improve on this record after they play the Giants, who they're one spot above, but we'll kind of have to see what happens there. At number 25, I have the Detroit Lions. Great effort by the Lions, playing behind Dan Campbell. This team fights until the very end. They were down big against Philadelphia, and really, Philly controlled the majority of that game. I don't think that they were really ever super duper concerned they were going to lose, but credit to the Lions for fighting back and continuing to, scrape and claw until the very last whistle. And DeAndre Swift had a huge game. Jared Goff is going to hold them back. The defensive play calling and defense just in general struggled a bit, but, there's some promising signs. Jeff Okudah played well, and you've got some nice pieces that you can hope to build around. This Lions team is one that I'm really excited to watch this season. I have them right now at 25, but I am very interested to see if they can move up as they continue to gel as a team. At number 24, I have the Chicago Bears. The Bears won against the 49ers, who were one of my, favorite teams this offseason. And credit to the Bears. I did not expect them to win this game. Matt Eberflus got the guys to rally behind him. And even though I don't know that you can take this game really out of the context that it is absolutely monsooning, Trey Lance was in his first NFL start, his first start in football in 2 years. They really, really struggled. And that's uncharacteristic of the 49ers. I am slightly worried about Trey Lance, but we'll get to that when we get to the 49ers. Credit to the Bears. Justin Fields didn't have a completion to a wide receiver or a tight end well into the third quarter, and they still figured out a way to win. They pound the rock. Justin Fields made some really spectacular plays, avoiding the rush, making some really good decisions. He had a couple of bad plays, don't get me wrong, but I think that you've got at least the foundation and the coaching to, in theory, be a pretty okay team. Really, this is all about just building for the future, but Fields didn't die, even though the offensive line wasn't great, and they looked decent against what I expect to be a pretty good team. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders, who we talked about beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carson Wentz had a very Carson Wentz game. He had some really nice throws. Jahan Dotson caught 2 touchdowns. There was some really bad plays as well. Wentz threw a screen pass directly to Trayvon Walker, who made a fantastic play, don't get me wrong, but still, just, you can't be throwing interceptions on screens. They played kind of up and down, much like I expect the Commanders to play all of this season. And you got to win against a team that you should beat. So that's good for the Commanders, and something that I think that they need to consistently do. Now, this NFC East is kind of a mess because of what we'll get into in a little bit, but in theory, they have some pieces that they could at least be pushing for the playoffs and maybe move up a couple of spots in the power rankings once they kind of continue to build on this success. So good for the Commanders. Got the win just like you needed to. Wasn't always pretty, but a win's a win. Next up, we have the New England Patriots. They lost to the Miami Dolphins. Really not a good game at all for the Patriots. And I'm not hitting the panic button on the Patriots offense, but I am definitely concerned at this point. The play calling is really bad with Matt Patricia. Mac Jones just doesn't have the weapons. He's also banged up now. Hopefully he plays week 2, but the weapons are really bad. The offensive line has some struggles adjusting to the wide zone, and I'm worried about this team. I don't think they're explosive. I don't think that they are young and exciting, and I don't think the play calling is particularly good on offense either. That's not really a great recipe for a successful team in a really, really competitive AFC. I don't know that they're going to be one of those teams really fighting at the very end. That's frustrating and very concerning for a team that, feels like they should be competing after making the playoffs last year. Next up at number 21, we have the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys did not play very well at all on Sunday Night Football against the Buccaneers. Their offense just could not get going. And then to make everything worse, Dak Prescott is out for multiple weeks. He will certainly miss the next couple of games. And Cooper Rush is going to be starting. Cooper Rush has started before. It was not good. And I think you could probably bump this team down even a little bit more. I was a little bit higher on them. I had them as a playoff team. So I decided to just kind of bump them down into that middle ground. But I could certainly see a situation where, no quarterback, you couldn't get the offense going at all. Defense had some decent plays, but the injuries are catching up to this team. You don't have Michael Gallup healthy. You don't have Dak healthy anymore. Your running backs were not effective. This is concerning. I think they could certainly drop a couple of spots over the next few weeks if they look really bad with Cooper Rush at the helm. So certainly something to watch. Very interested to see how they play with no Dak. I cannot imagine it's going to be good. Not a great start at all for the Cowboys. Next up at number 20, we have the Cleveland Browns. They didn't really look fantastic against the Panthers. They were able to kick a game-winning 58-yard field goal with rookie kicker Cade York. That's something that their Browns are just going to have to do with no Watson. You got to scrape away any wins that you possibly can and at least remain competitive until he gets back. You've really just got to grind out as many wins as you can. Jacoby Brissett didn't really look fantastic. They had some decent runs from Hunt and Chubb, but this is not a team that's going to be explosive. It's not going to be able to keep up with the high-end, super fantastic offenses, I don't think. But they are probably going to be able to keep around that 500 mark until Watson gets back and they can really push for the playoffs. Next up at number 19, I have the Tennessee Titans. They lost to the New York Giants. And man, this team does not look the same as the number 1 seed is in the AFC that they were last year. I was lower on the Titans coming in, and I think I remain lower on them. I'm not a fan of what they have. I don't believe in Derrick Henry to stay healthy for the entire season. I think that the offense is so limited with no A.J. Brown. You lose, you're just relying on Ryan Tannehill too much, and I don't think that that's a recipe for success. You lose Harold Landry. They're just starting to get banged up. You lost some good pieces this offseason. This is not a team that I see really rebounding super successfully. Will they be in the mix for the playoffs? Probably, because they play in a really weak division in the AFC South. You get 4 games against the Texans and Jaguars. But I'm worried about this team at this point. Losing the Giants is not good. It's a really bad sign. And it's week 1, not overreacting, but certainly a cause for concern. Next up at number 18, we have the Miami Dolphins. This is another team that I was a little bit lower on. They played really well. I actually picked them to win this week against the Patriots. This is probably going to be one of the better Tua performances of the season where, he's pretty much just getting the ball into his wide receivers' hands and they're making plays. And that's okay. If that's how they can win games and that's how they can move the ball down the field, that's great. I don't know that it's super sustainable, but for now, that's a good win. The defense looked really solid. You kept a really poor offense under wraps. You moved the ball. You got the win. That's all that matters. Good for them. And, if they continue to play like that, they will move up in these power rankings. I have nothing against the Dolphins, but, I got to see a little bit more before I bump them up super high, but good for them. That's a big win for them. At number 17, we have the Arizona Cardinals. And man, they got absolutely dismantled by the Chiefs. And I am concerned about this team also. This is about 3 teams in a row now where, man, that's not great. This defense is so bad. And I get it. It's the Chiefs. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. Definitely very, very good. But they got destroyed. And the offense had some nice plays here and there. Kyler Murray played relatively decently, but when your defense is going to give up 5 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes, you're not going to be able to compete. It's just as simple as that. I think it all kind of comes down to the coaching. Will they be okay? Yeah, I think they'll hover around 500 probably most of the season, but it's a really rough way to start your season. And for a team that I already had my concerns about, this just kind of further makes those concerns more relevant. So we'll see what happens with them. Don't want to overreact. It's the Chiefs. It's 1 week, but not a great start at all for the Arizona Cardinals. At number 16, I have the Denver Broncos. They lose in Monday Night Football to the Seattle Seahawks in Russ Wilson's return. As I mentioned, this was always going to be a game that could potentially be a big upset. I'm not surprised the Seahawks won. I think that this was a very emotional game, and it's gonna happen. The Broncos are going to lose some games that they probably shouldn't. This is one of them. Yes, they are a much more talented team than the Seahawks. I wasn't super impressed by the defense. Geno Smith was carving them up a little bit, and there was too many undisciplined penalties, and the coaching was really, really bad from Nathaniel Hackett. The clock management at the end was dreadful, and he's a first-time NFL head coach. That's gonna happen, but not a great start for the Broncos, and a season that they have Super Bowl aspirations. I've been a little bit pump the brakes on them, but we'll see what happens. 1 week doesn't define a season. They had some nice moments, but you've got to beat bad teams like Seattle. At number 15, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders had a little bit of a rough game against the Chargers. They kind of kept it somewhat close, but Herbert really dominated them. Derek Carr did not play particularly well. Devontae Adams had some really nice plays, and that's exciting to see that addition is paying off. They had some nice plays here and there, just they got relatively handily beat by a division rival. Doesn't really change a whole lot of my opinion of them. That's a very similar spot to where I've had them, but not a great look at all for week 1. We'll continue to monitor that situation, and Derek Carr's got to play much better. That was not one of his finer performances. I am a Derek Carr fan, so hopefully he is able to figure that all out, but not great for the Raiders in week 1. At number 14, I have the Minnesota Vikings. This was a great game for the Vikings, and they certainly could continue to push much higher than this. Good for them for, fighting off their division rivals, the big boy Packers, team that's kind of bullied that division for years and years, and they host them and they dominate them. It's as simple as that. Now, the Packers are notoriously terrible week 1. We saw that last year when they lost to the Saints by like 35 points. They're going to rebound. They're going to be fine. It just takes a while. And they had some rough offensive plays for sure. And Rodgers and this offense have got to figure out which wide receiver is going to step up for him. It's almost like trading away the number 1 wide receiver in the league and not replacing him is problematic, but we move on. The Vikings themselves, Kirk Cousins had a really good game, honestly. Justin Jefferson was absolutely fantastic. I think it's safe to say he is a top 3 receiver in the league. If that wasn't already clear, he might be top 1. It's not bold, really, I think, to say that at this point. He was my Offensive Player of the Year prediction, so I'm liking that production from him. But Kevin O'Connell looks the part, so that's really exciting for this team. And hopefully they're able to continue to build on this success and move forward, being a really threatening team. At number 13, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime on a last-second field goal as overtime expired. This was an absolute just disaster of a game. There's 2 ways to really look at this game. The Steelers held the AFC champions last year to 20 points. They caused Joe Burrow, who is a top 6 quarterback in my mind, to have 5 turnovers, which was horrendous. One of the worst games I've ever seen him play. And, that's really great. Now, there's also a flip side of it that you had a +5 turnover differential. You were killing the Bengals offensive line, 7 sacks for them, and you still won by a last-second field goal in overtime. The offense looked incompetent. TJ Watt is probably going to be out for at least some significant time, maybe the season, with a torn pec, which is unfortunate, of course. But this team played well, but I'm not convinced. That's really where I'm at with them. At number 12, I have the San Francisco 49ers. They just didn't play well against the Bears. Trey Lance had a really, really rough start to his NFL career. It was not good. You kind of got to throw this game out a little bit because it was pouring rain. You couldn't hardly see. Everyone was sliding all over the field. I was someone that was really excited to watch the 49ers, and I thought they were going to be a fantastic team, and I still think that they can be. I'm not overreacting to that. But Trey Lance did not look good, and that's concerning because you're in a situation where Jimmy G is available to come in at any point, but you don't want to go back because then you're killing your young quarterback's confidence. There's just a lot of potential issues with this team, and I want to see them get better before I really rank them in that top 10, really make them one of the premier teams in the NFL again, as I was hyping them up to be. At number 11, I have the New Orleans Saints. This team looked dead in the water. I mean, the first 3 quarters of the game, they were getting destroyed by the number 32 team on this list, the Atlanta Falcons. Cordell Patterson was running through their defense. They were playing really poorly. And then Jameis Winston came on in the 4th quarter and just decided, okay, I'm going to go win this game. Michael Thomas had 2 huge touchdown catches. They came back and they win on a field goal at the end of the game. And it's a scrappy win. It's certainly not how you want to beat a really bad team, but a win is a win. I think that this team is going to be good. They're someone I am excited about to watch for the future. So not a fantastic win. You know, the offense looked slow to start. The defense had their issues against a really bad offense, but they got the win. I think that this team is going to continue to build and improve in the future. I'm excited to see what they do. So they're in that spot for now. Moving into my top 10, I have the Indianapolis Colts at number 10. This team started so slow against the Houston Texans, who are really, really bad. They were down big, and they're able to force overtime after a really good comeback, and you're not able to get the win. Ends in a tie. It's just kind of very meh feeling afterwards. Ties don't feel right, but I still think that this team has the talent. They're going to probably make the playoffs in a really bad division, and so good on them for fighting back, showing that fight's important. Certainly, that's a game you should be winning, but to get anything out of it is something, and hopefully they're going to continue to look better moving forward. Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman had decent games. Jonathan Taylor was a beast on the ground. Just got to clean some things up. It's really all it is at the end of the day. At number 9, I have my Cincinnati Bengals. They did not look good. I mean, the offense looked absolutely dreadful. 5 turnovers from Joe Burrow. It was so uncharacteristic. It was so weird to watch. He was just making wrong reads, and Burrow doesn't do that very often. I think that this was easily his worst game as a professional. It's disappointing to see, but it happens. It's against a division rival, and I think that they're going to bounce back. I'm not super worried about this team's future, but, you know, Jamar Chase still had a fantastic day. T. Higgins went out with an injury. Hopefully he's going to be healthy moving forward, but you know, the defense did a fantastic job. The offense gave up 5 turnovers, and they held them to 23 points of 5 quarters of play. You did what you could. I mean, really, if this team had a long snapper, they probably would have won the game, and that's ridiculous for, you know, to have a -5 turnover differential and still you should have won the game if, you know, you were able to snap the ball correctly on a long snap, because their long snapper tore his biceps in the middle of the game and had a 3rd-string tight end doing it. Not making excuses. I mean, the Steelers deserved to win that game, and the Bengals deserved to lose with the way they played. But that is a little bit of a testament to both of these teams that it still took 5 full quarters of play to separate them after a -5 turnover differential. Just something to keep in mind. They didn't look good this week, and I bumped them down a couple of rankings, but something to build on, potentially, at least coming back and fighting through adversity. So, at number 8, I have the Los Angeles Rams, defending Super Bowl champions. Looked really bad. They looked really bad against the Buffalo Bills, and I'm worried about this team a little bit. Not hitting the panic button, but not great. Not great at all. The offensive line looked really bad. Andrew Whitworth's retirement might be a bigger deal than made it out to be. Stafford didn't trust anyone besides Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson was open for the majority of the game and got thrown the ball once. It was really, really bad from the Rams offense. Cam Akers is gone, apparently. He's disappeared. And the offense looked dreadful. Now, the defense it's Josh Allen, it's the Bills. They're going to put up some points. They had some rough plays here and there, but they were forcing turnovers. They were giving the ball back to their offense here and there. And the Rams offense was not able to take advantage. Now, Sean McVay is a great coach. They are going to be okay. But, yes, this is probably the best team in the NFL right now that they played. But you've got to do better than that as, defending Super Bowl champs. So something to monitor there. I'm not hitting the panic button on them, but we do have them at number 8. The entire NFC West, except the Seattle Seahawks, lost, which is not what I was expecting, I will say that. At number 7, we have the Green Bay Packers. As we mentioned, they really just didn't look good against the Vikings. They always start slow for whatever reason, and it's for that reason I'm not really panicking. I don't understand the defense that they were playing. They just played zone the entire game, and you've got one of the best secondaries in the NFL. I get it. It's Justin Jefferson, but Jair Alexander is probably a top 3 corner in the league. Trust your guy. Put him on their best guy and see what happens. And they just ran zone the entire game, and Kirk Cousins picked them apart, which he can do. And so we'll see how the Packers rebound against the Bears. I think they should certainly win that game handedly, but we'll see what happens. At number 6, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they played pretty well. The offense looked really explosive. A.J. Brown had a fantastic game. Jalen Hurts looked pretty good as well. Those are all great signs for the offense. Kenny Gainwell got involved as well. Miles Sanders had a pretty good game. So that's really exciting from an offensive perspective. Defense didn't really look fantastic against a pretty bad Lions offense, but, the offense was kind of the problem last year. I trust the defense to at least be league average, and so you've got some really good things to build around on offense. I am excited for this team, and, with the Cowboys, with Dak going down with injury, this is certainly the Eagles' division to lose. They should win this pretty easily now at this point, and I think they've played well so far, and then there's no reason to, think that they can't be competitive. At number 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens. They were playing Joe Flacco and the New York Jets. They kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start, but Lamar Jackson was able to figure things out. Devin Duvernay had a big game. Rashad Bateman had a nice catch as well. The offense was off to a slow start, but they got going. The defense played well, but, it's Joe Flacco and the Jets, so take that as you will. But this team played really, really well. They deserve to be ranked this high, and certainly a team that is going to be competing in the AFC as long as they continue to stay healthy, though that's not really the case already. They lose Juwan James, their tackle. Ronnie Stanley's down as well. So you're on your 3rd string tackle already. Hopefully this isn't going to be a repeat of what they had last year, but we'll see what happens on that front. At number 4, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. This team played well against the Raiders, and they're definitely a AFC contender at this point. Justin Herbert is a top 6 quarterback in the NFL as well. He has played fantastically. Keenan Allen did go down. The offensive line had their ups and downs, but Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa looked fantastic, and the secondary had some issues with Devontae Adams, but as a whole, they did a really good job on defense. On offense, they looked competent, they looked clean. This is a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl. They should be in the divisional round of the playoffs, and they've just got to keep that up over the course of the season. That's really what's important for the Chargers. At number 3, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team did not play particularly well against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. They are having some serious injuries start to rack up, and it's starting to get mildly concerning. The offensive line is really banged up, and they just didn't look very explosive on offense. Chris Godwin's probably down for a little bit. So I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFL, but hopefully injuries don't catch up to them. That is a little bit of a concern for me. At number 2, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. They dominated the Arizona Cardinals. Patrick Mahomes had a fantastic quarterbacking performance. The Chiefs' offense did not look like they missed a step at all. They just thoroughly dominated. And, the defense had their issues here and there, but it was a really solid win for the Chiefs. They are a team that looks like they can go the distance once again. With Patrick Mahomes, that's always going to be the case, but they looked the part, and they had a really, really good game against the Cardinals team that, some people think are going to be really pretty good this year. So that's an exciting start for the Chiefs. And at number 1, that leaves the Buffalo Bills. They deserve the spot until proven otherwise. They dominated the defending Super Bowl champions on Thursday Night Football. And Josh Allen looked absolutely sensational. The entire offense looked great. Diggs, Gabe Davis, all of them. The defensive front seven looked awesome. This is the number one team in the NFL until proven otherwise, and they're going to be a true force to stop. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is something that I hope to put out on a weekly basis after all of the games have concluded for the week. Please go ahead, like, subscribe, comment what you think I got wrong here, what do you think I got right, if anything. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.